Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and size matters. I currently have roughly around 920 games in my collection, and the total value of those games is coming to roughly around 60 grand, which is really, I guess, depending on where you're at in your collecting journey, that may be a minuscule number, that may be a large number, but it's subjective, right? How we feel about that number is going to be based on our vantage point when it comes to video game collecting and the value of video games. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is really to talk about um, what I've learned over the last quarter of 2024 in terms of what I'm doing with my collection and what I see happening going into 2025. Now, I typically do a purge at the end of each year, just because a lot of times I'll pick up random things throughout the year, and sometimes I get a chance to sell the things I'm not super interested in. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I hang on to games longer than I need to. But at some point, I do get to a point where I'm like, okay, it's time for me to sell these games off out of the collection. And there's two viewpoints, I think, on collecting in the video game community. Some people really concentrate on the number of games that they pick up. They might go to a game store or a convention and say, okay, I have a goal of picking up 100 games. I want to buy 100 games, or I want to get all of the Game Boy games, or I want to get all of the PlayStation games. And it doesn't matter to them, what they're picking up, because they're really trying to hit a number. Whereas you have other collectors who are going in looking for specific things. Maybe they want to get only working designs games. Maybe they only want to pick up Konami games. Maybe they only want to pick up Sega games. Right? So you have the folks who are concentrating on specific things for their collection. Um, and you could have two people who walk into a collection each having $500, but you'll have that person who might spend $500 on one game and be thoroughly satisfied because they got the one game that they've been looking for, versus the person who picked up maybe 50 games, and is starting off a collection. For me, I never really want my collection to be more than 1,000 games. That's just me personally. That's the limit that I've set for myself. Everyone has different limits. Some people, maybe their limit is 5,000. Some, maybe their limit is 10,000. For me personally, I never want to house more than 1,000 games, just because I've come to realize that I can comfortably shelf around 900 games, 900 to 950 games. Once I start getting into the 1,000+ realm, I start running out of spaces to put these games, and I'm not going to create additional space in my home to add more games. So this is where the curation has come in, and this is where I found myself, um, like I said, doing a purge and using the excess games in my collection to curate a little bit better. And so within the last quarter of 2024, I've probably traded it away and sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 games or so, 350 games, maybe somewhere in that realm. Now, not every game because I know I just said that I had around 920 games. Those are the games that I have logged into my gaming list in the Game Eye app. Now, there have been points in my collection where I've had excess games, and those games weren't logged in, but they were, in a box somewhere in a room, ready for me to take in to do like a bulk trade or a bulk deal or just a massive sell-off. And so I had at one point this quarter, at least 5 boxes of just like, random Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, Wii U games, that I used in a number of different trades. And I really wound up turning 350 or so games into, I would say, maybe 30 to 50 quality titles that I've picked up over the last quarter. And I got to be honest with you, I'm thoroughly stoked with what I've been able to do with the access in my collection, and how I've been able to turn it into stuff that I really like, because I've used a number of channels. I've done GameStop trades. I've done mom and pop video game store trades. I've done Facebook marketplace deals. I've reached out to people through social media. I've hit up just personal contacts that I know. And I've really just used every angle that I know possible to try and maximize the stuff that I had to flip into just different games that I've either wanted to try or experience, or games that I've always wanted to get. And so you're looking at some of the highlights here. These are all games that you've already heard me talk about on the channel ad nauseum. But roughly, you know, you got a good amount of games here. And to be honest with you, you do have a lot of high price stuff. When you look at games like Spike Out and Otogi, Die Hard Arcade, obviously the Silent Hill games and Rule of Rose, Pokemon XD, Lost Kingdoms, and you know, even looking at some of the Dreamcast games or the Sega Genesis games, obviously the Sega CD, one of the crown jewels in my collection at this point. Picked up a really cool Game Boy Advance SP, very clean, Pokemon and Mega Man 3, G.I. Joe, just some really good stuff. And to be honest with you, like I said, a lot of these were done via trade. I traded the games away. Some of them I got some sales done online via Mercari, and was able to you know, take some of those funds and actually put them into more games that I wanted. But in 2025 I might be doing something a little bit different. A few people like all year have kind of voiced their desire to purchase things from me, purchase things out of my collection. And I don't know, I've never really wanted to leverage my channel and use my channel to like sell stuff to my audience. I'd rather just kind of do my deals off of YouTube, outside of YouTube, and just kind of work with folks that I know. But I am considering a couple things in 2025. And one of those things is actually trying out not Whatnot, but maybe Encore. I'm thinking about it. And the only reason why I would do something like a Whatnot or an Encore is because I literally have people reach out to me on social media. They leave comments, man, I want to buy this from you. Sell me this, sell me that. And, you know, it might work out. You know, it might work out for my audience. It might be a great way for me to connect with the audience. It might be a great way for me to kind of help someone who's trying to go to the next phase of their collecting journey. And I do have games and things in my collection that I'm considering selling in 2025. I have a fantastic N64 that I think I might want to get rid of, a complete in box PlayStation 2. So, you know, just a bunch of things that, you know, I may be moving away from as I continue to consolidate. I would love to get my collection down to a solid like 800 games, maybe even 600 games, while maintaining, you know, the value of my collection. And you know, that's just gonna boil down to curation. Like I said, it's gonna boil down to me kind of removing more things. To be quite honest, I've done a lot of purging, so there's really not much left in my collection that I think I would want to get rid of or move out of the collection. And you know, this has been like, this quarter has been like I feel like my last stand to do any real major like retro, you know, game pickups, because I am going to be moving towards more Switch titles. So I did do a few deals and take advantage of GameStop's buy two get one online. I've been kind of refreshing their website and just waiting for new things to pop up, and as they do, I snipe them as they come in. And we'll see what happens with that coming out of this year, going into next year. But like I said, you know, the size does matter, but it matters in both directions, right? And it just depends on what you're going for. If you're going for a big collection, if you want to have a room or an entire apartment or an entire basement that's just completely jam-packed with games, then by all means, go out and buy every game you can, right? You can go to any Goodwill thrift store and pick up a bunch of $1 games. You can buy every sports title there is known to man. You could buy every sports title there is known to man and fill up an entire room of Madden, going all the way back to Madden 92 or whenever they started Madden 93, I don't know. You could buy all the live games, all the NBA 2K games, all of them, right? And just start filling out a room. But if you're more thinking about the size of your collection in terms of a small, condensed, niche collection of superior titles, just quality titles. And again, it doesn't always necessarily mean that the titles are going to be ridiculously expensive. You can have really great titles, really quality titles that have a normal price tag, right? $30, $20, $15. It doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be super expensive, but it does mean that it needs to be quality, right? And so, um, and I mean, obviously, quality is such a subjective term because then, you're going to get the people in the comments like, well, there's a ton of quality games that are $5. And that's true. That's true, right? You can pick up a lot of those types of games. And I do have games in my collection that are $5. I show people all the time, like, dude, I've got the Fable games, man. Like, I've got Fable 1, 2, and 3, Crackdown. These are legitimately $4 games, but I'm not selling these games. Fable, Conan, Viking, Prince of Persia. I got a lot of titles down here that are just super cheap, but they're quality titles. So, same thing with the DS, TMNT, Episode 3, quality titles. So you don't got to necessarily break the bank. And I'm not just like selling games because they're cheap. I mean, 99 Nights is a $10 game, right? So, there's a lot of stuff that you can add to the collection that is quality and cheap at the same time. But it just so happens that a lot of and I know I'm doing some rearranging, so that's why you're seeing all these gaps. I'm trying to rearrange like my PlayStation 2 and GameCube collection. But I saw that to say that you don't necessarily have to break the bank to get quality, but it just so happens that a lot of the best titles are expensive. That's just the way it is. Quality titles are going to cost more. And in 2025, especially when it comes to the Switch, that's going to be the beautiful thing about the Switch, is because whether it's quality or not, most of those Switch games are going to be the same price. They're all going to range between 20 and 30, maybe $35. So, yeah, I mean, look, do what's right for you. I'm not going to tell anyone how to build their collection. But I will say that size does matter. And I don't think that you can reasonably have both. I don't think you can have a collection of thousands and thousands of games all worth a lot of money unless you're just rolling in dough. Because if you do have thousands of games, a good chunk of those games are going to be like bad, right? Like they're going to be bad. And that's just because on most consoles have a lot of bad games. If you look at the library of a lot of consoles, maybe 35% of each console on average has quality games. The rest is like Blue's Clues and Barbie's Horse Training, and like all those games are there, and they're just in a lot of cases they're shovelware. But let me know what you guys think about this. Like I said, it's been a very interesting, a fun and interesting last quarter, and I really want to continue this trend going into 2025. But I don't just want to do it with retro stuff. I want to treat my Switch collection the same way, my PS5 collection the same way. All killer, no filler. That's what we're going for. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.